To build Divis flats in the planning mad 60s. 1 tower block and 13 of 6 stories. 795 units in cheap concrete and glorified cardboard to house over 3,000 people. Economy, both of land and materials, was the guiding philosophy. Up, it was urged, was the best way to push people who were socially down. But in creating their desirable views, the planners were guilty of disastrous vision. They started to move the people in and up in 1969, a year that was to be memorable for other reasons in Northern Ireland. Soon, Divis had become a twin symbol of the trauma of bad planning and of the tragedy of Belfast.
A fresh wave of violence in Northern Ireland. 3 soldiers have died, 2 in Londonderry and 1 in Belfast. Divis Street is now very much quieter. The youngsters who had kept up a continuous attack on the Hastings Street Police and Army barracks since 11 o'clock this morning have gone home. But behind them they leave a scene which is a grim reminder of a day which has seen the worst rioting in this district since the present...
Well, at first I thought it was a fairy story. I was wrong. It was a multi-story.
This place has been proved conclusively it can never, under any circumstances, be made into a place which could be fit for human habitation. And in fact, it's not even fit for animals to live in.
Joke. I'm 10 floors up and the elevator's broke. I need a doctor, flying doctor.
You can see here yourself, when people look out of their windows, they're looking at concrete 24 hours a day, and this alone is a terrible strain and stress on people. They have no environment at all.
Now, you've lived here for 11 years, ever since Divis flats were opened.
Yes, 11 years in June coming.
What would it do to you if you were to believe that you'd have to spend the rest of your life here?
Tell you the truth, I'd go out and jump over them balconies. I wouldn't, I couldn't stick it on, I don't think I could stick it another year here.
These are the little terraces which still characterise much of the lower falls. It's the way the people of Divis used to live. Nobody pretends they're ideal, and in the planning philosophy of the 60s, the flats were an answer of sorts. But the tragedy of Divis is that it's an accident of history. When the present trouble started in 1969, the new tenants found themselves caught in a historical trap, one that has always put Catholics and Protestants on either side of an absurdly named peace line. There are now between 3,500 and 7,000 people living in the complex, depending on whose figures you believe. It's said that at such a density, you could squeeze the whole of the population of Ulster into 4 square miles. But in Divis, the horrors of constriction are compounded by the flaws of construction. No heating was ever provided in the bedrooms, and anyway, the tenants could neither afford to put it in nor to run it. The price of gas and electricity in Northern Ireland, astoundingly, is nearly 30% more than in mainland Britain. Insulation in the flats is appalling. A stinking black mould on walls and ceilings is all pervasive. But if the buildings are slummy, the people are not. The incongruous things about Divis are the bright, clean curtains, carpets and furniture, and the washed doorsteps. The tenants are fighting for normality, but it's a losing battle.
I put every effort in here to make it comfortable as we can, but it doesn't seem to be we're getting nowhere with it, really. See this frock here?
What's this? Let's have a look at that.
Yes.
That's obviously a fairly new dress,
Yes,
is it?
it is.
Yeah, and
It is.
what happened to that?
Well, it's just went fusty and you couldn't wear it nowhere. I mean, if you're in a company, you couldn't wear that for it's smelling.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, I think I should say that the smell is absolutely appalling.
Appalling.
It's shocking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's just the best way you could explain
It's like
it.
going into a real dank, dark cellar, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Damp and condensation is caused not only because people can't afford heating. Ventilation systems that don't work in structures that are obviously impractical are also to blame. Electrics not working through wet and vandalism make the windowless bathrooms unmanageable.
Well, as you can see yourself, dampness everywhere, ceilings, walls, and the children's bed. This bed here, the children can't even lie on it now at all with the dampness. They're all in this one bed. And the wallpaper's hanging off for dampness. That one corner there, the water just runs down that wall, the carpet and all soaking. And below there, and you see there the flaking, the ceiling right along here. And this wardrobe here, it's the children's clothes.
Oh, look at that. Now that's caused by the condensation,
Yes.
is it? It's as wet as anything.
Soaking.
And it stinks as well.
Yes.
Foisty and musty,
Yes.
doesn't it? Yeah.
So
What effect is it having on your family?
It's terrible. The oldest boy here has asthma, and the second wee boy, he has a cough now that's 6 months and more. Can't get rid of it at all.
The Northern Ireland Housing Executive, which runs the place, is faced with enormous problems. For the best part of 10 years, with Divis virtually a no-go area, they could hardly get into the flats to carry out repairs. And the presence of the security forces, though less obtrusive than it used to be, adds another dimension to the problem. In the old days, the soldiers regularly smashed the landing lights with their rifle butts to give them cover of darkness.
Well, this is what conditions are like, actually. This is broad daylight. As you can see, it's pitch blackness, so what you'll have to do is, if you can just keep to the right-hand side of the staircase, keep your hand on the handrail, count each steps. In each flight there are 7 steps, but you really will have to be careful, because some of the steps are crumbling and cracked, and you won't see them in the darkness. In fact, it could result in a very nasty fall.
So let me get this right. I've got to count 7 again here now. 1, 2,
That's right.
3, 4,
Just be careful.
5, 6, 7. This is what you've got to do down several flights all the time.
From top to bottom, there are actually 12 flights of stairs from the walk up to the road. So in fact, with the result that young mothers with prams, young children in them, old age pensioners, old women, have to endure these conditions to get in and out of their flat.
The planners' descriptions of Divis in the original blueprints now sound as hollow as the noise that echoes constantly around the interminable galleries. A machine for living, they call it. The lucky tenants would have the pleasure of living in streets in the air. To compound the folly, they even built one, a drying room where all the women of Divis were expected to hang their washing, leave it overnight, and collect it the next day. For many, it would have meant a walk of 1/4 of a mile each way. Needless to say, it's never been used, and the washing dries on window ledges. But the ultimate folly of building a sectarian ghetto like Divis is reflected in the male unemployment figure, variously assessed at between 50 and 67%. The improbability of finding work is something Catholic fathers traditionally explain to their sons in West Belfast, but add the stigma of a Divis address and the improbable becomes almost impossible.
People find it impossible practically to get goods in hire purchase. They find it very hard to get employment. People here are treated as second-class citizens.
What, you mean if they go down the town and say their address is Divis Flats, that's it? It's an instant stigma.
It's an instant stigma. People are reluctant now to put Divis Flats when they're addressing envelopes or letters to anywhere.
After years of enforced inactivity, the housing executive now wants to do something about Divis. They plan to spend £8 million demolishing 2 blocks and refurbishing the rest. But the tenants say it's not enough. They've set up a demolition committee to demand the total destruction of the complex. And for now, they're using every legal loophole to force the executive's hand.
Well, what I'll do, I'll fill in these duplicated letters to the housing executive and one to the health department, and in fact in another couple of days, when they don't carry out the main repair, we'll take them to court for compensation and for breach of the Public Health Act. People feel that if there is an amount such as £7 or £8 million to be spent on what is merely a patch-up job to cover up the real conditions in Divis Flats, that in fact if this money is spent, then a lot of people in Divis will have to spend the rest of their lives in Divis Flats. Now, they have lived here for 11 years and they are just not prepared to live here any longer than is absolutely necessary.
It's hard to believe, given the Divis disaster, that there's no shortage of housing in West Belfast. Less than half a mile away, there are good houses standing empty and whole blocks of flats ready to be knocked down because there's nobody to go into them. But that's in the Protestant Shankill, the other side of the ignominious peace line.
Ever since the riots of the 1880s, Belfast has been parcelled up. That peace line's been on exactly the same line for 100 years, and it doesn't move. It's like a situation where there's a kind of a dam with a very, very high water level on one side and the Catholic side overcrowded, and a comparatively low level of occupation on the other side. Is there a risk that one day the dam will break? I don't know. For the moment, it simply isn't, I think, politically possible to consider or contemplate ever extending Catholic West Belfast across the peace line, nor, I think, would the Catholic inhabitants feel safe if they were to try to do so.
Divis dominates the view from the windows of the Housing Executive headquarters, a constant reminder of the problem they can't solve. They say it would take 15 years at least to demolish the flats and rehouse the tenants, always supposing they could find somewhere to put them.
It's a matter of priorities. Yes, we ought to knock down perhaps 20,000 worn-out houses in Belfast that are 100 years old, that are substandard in every way. But we can't, and nobody could, replace them overnight. And there's no sense in knocking them down until there's somewhere for people to go. This is the great problem of Divis, is where are the people to go?
Such is the feeling of the Divis residents, they physically resist all attempts to refurbish the flats that become empty. Workmen are allowed in only to do day-to-day maintenance. And privately, the experts admit that no amount of money can make them fit to live in for more than 15 years. They agree that on all grounds, humanitarian, social, even political, they should come down, while they press ahead with plans to keep most of them up. It's a Northern Ireland paradox of a classic kind. And as with so many others in that sad province, a sensible solution seems neither likely nor possible.
But when people have lived for 11 years in Divis flats, they're coming to the point of complete and utter anarchy, in which they're stating that they're not prepared to live here any longer. So we wouldn't envisage Divis flats being here in 4 years' time. If it is here in 4 years' time, what the government and the Housing Executive will have on their hands are 6,000 potentially very violent anarchists.
We are the Divis Street crowd around East. We are the nuisance to the public, I agree. See us walk down the street in our 90s, with our packers full of LSD. See us stand and talk to the mug guys. A Divis ready, a ride, a Divis Street crowd, a righty car.